There was a time we thought the earth was flat. There was a time where religion and science and government were all considered as pretty much one thing. Then Galileo came along and had the audacity to suggest that the earth revolved around the sun, when religion and government wanted us to believe that the earth was the center of the universe and everything evolved and revolved around us. So they locked poor Galileo away. At that point in time, there was a strong movement, a strong desire for religion and science to walk away from one another. And they tried. They really tried. And they thought that they could do it because, let's face it, as they saw it, the earth was flat. Everything in the universe was flat. But it's not. The earth was round. Perception. The very concept of what solid means is no longer valid. Even the earth itself is nothing but a combination of particles vibrating at certain speeds. We perceive this vibration as being solid. But as we know, everything touches and nothing touches. That means us too. Matter is energy and vibration is a matter of perception. This phone sounds solid, feels solid, but if I place it under an electron microscope, I will see that it is what science today calls 99.999% empty space. It's comprised of atoms. This book, for example, 99.999% empty space according to science. It is comprised of atoms. Now, empty space itself might not be the best terminology, because what we refer to as empty space is really a field of information. If I place this phone on this book, it looks like the phone and book are touching, but they're not. Look at an atom. There's lots of space around the atom. And if you take just one atom and you look at the nucleus of an atom, well, we already know that there's a huge amount of space around where the electrons travel and the nucleus of the atom, the nucleus itself. We know that that's a huge distance, that space. But you know what? If you look right into there, the nucleus of this atom, it's comprised of protons and neutrons clumped together, stuck together. But if we look closely, they're not actually stuck together at all. They're not even touching. If you look into the nucleus of one atom right here, and you take just two tiny little protons, any two, you blow up each of those two protons to the size of an orange. Do you know how much distance there would be between these two oranges, these two protons, if they were each just the size of an orange? It would be the equivalent of 2 to 2.5 football fields. And that's just one atom. How many atoms comprise this little solid phone? Empty space. Mostly empty space. The same thing with the molecules in this book. Mostly empty space. Empty space is not what I consider the most intelligent description for that space. And we're going to have to change our thought process on this fairly quickly, and I believe that change is already underway. If there were truly empty space, everything would fall apart. But nothing is empty. It's a field of information. So if I take this book and I rest the phone on the book, they appear to be touching. They sound even as if they're touching. But nothing is touching, it's just two fields of information playing with one another, interacting, dancing. In the same way that everything is touching and nothing is touching, everyone is touching and no one is touching. This couple, for example, sitting with their arms entwined, they appear to be touching. Yet these two people on the other side of the room are maintaining a socially acceptable distance. Some of us feel we are touching the person next to us, and others are sure that we are not touching. And by social standards, we are each considered to be correct. But quantum physics will tell us that everyone is touching and no one is touching, everything is touching and nothing is touching. Did you ever walk into a bakery? You smell freshly baked goods, it's beautiful, and then there's the sign that says, please don't touch. But once you smell them, too late for that. You're already interacting with them. Your molecules are dancing together. Your fields of information are dancing together. Everything is touching and nothing is touching. All right, that's a pleasant description. Let's try a different one. Ever take a long drive and you know eventually you're going to need to use the public bathroom, and you hold off and you hold off and you hold off, but finally you can't any longer. You pull the car in, you go into the bathroom, and it really just doesn't smell the way you want it to. And you think to yourself, thank goodness I'm not touching anything. Too late. Everything is touching and nothing is touching. Everyone is touching and no one is touching. You see, we are all embodying the entire universe within each of our protons, within each of us. When you gain an insight, or for example, an understanding, that information becomes part of just one proton in one atom within you. And then that information, that insight, that understanding is shared with all the other protons in that atom. And then it's shared with the other protons within your body and the other protons within the person that you are sitting next to or talking to on the phone, with the protons of the person you're thinking about and the people you're not thinking about, within everyone on the planet and the universe itself. Our own bodies are simply vibration. In other words, what we are so used to feeling when we touch our face, when we hold someone's hand, isn't solid matter at all. What gives shape to everything is the speed, the resonance of how these particles vibrate. In other words, this is our local reality, the physical world we perceive in this vibration, and our perceived experience of it. Beyond our local reality, there is also our non-local reality, and through it, our connection to zero-point field, or, as we mentioned before, the field of infinite information, infinite potential, the intelligence of the universe. Our non-local experience is an awareness of things outside of our physical bodies. We will be talking more about what local and non-local means later. For now, for contemplation's sake, think of our local being as the I that we reference when we use the word me, and our non-local being as the I in the broader sense, the I in I am. Let's face it, realizing that we are not solid, that nothing is solid, is one of the most difficult concepts to grasp. So it's not surprising we tend to scratch our head at the very idea that we are made out of energy, because it is not what we expect. We expect to touch a hot iron and get burnt. We expect water to feel wet. We expect an orange to taste like an orange. Our perception has led us to expect things to be a certain way, and we have gone ahead and made more sub-rules and regulations about how our reality works. When we perceive reality as a purely local experience, we use our expectations to tell us how things should be, and not as they are. Expectation is when we set up rules, we try to put things into a box, or paint a very precise picture made up of shoulds and shouldn'ts. It should look like this. It should behave like this, and smell like this, and taste like this, and act like this, and this is what I want, etc., etc., etc. Expectations tend to be very precise. And to the degree that things don't live up to them, or we don't live up to them, or others don't live up to them, well, often a separation of sorts arises. We have been organized since our birth to follow steps. Our first steps were steps and procedures, strategies, tactics, and routines. We focus on receiving results through steps and techniques. Yet now we're being told that we can exist outside of time without steps, without techniques, without procedures. We can exist within love and light and freedom without needing rituals to protect us and healing objects to make us more or better. And we have the ability to function, not just within the limitations of a result-oriented consciousness, a result-oriented world, but instead we can allow ourselves to become even more by simply floating in the experience of what we might call the process. You see, our steps and our result orientation for many of us has formed our cognitive belief systems. Expectation puts things and ourselves into boxes.